Hi, Wake Forest. I'm Dee Dee Pinckney-Holly, Executive Director of Internal Communications, and this is Insider Perspective. Today, we're sitting down with none other than Phil Handwerk, Assistant Provost in the Office of Institutional Research. Phil has over a decade of experience at Wake Forest, and he's going to be giving us the insider scoop on all things institutional research, the upcoming SACS accreditation, and we'll get to learn a little bit more about him as our colleague. Well, Phil, thank you so much for joining me on Insider Perspective.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I think the first question has to be the most obvious one. What is institutional research and why is it critical for the university?
So I often define institutional research using the title itself, institutional and research. First, the institutional part. Our office has the responsibility of reporting a lot of the information most people want to know about an institution of higher education. How many students we have, how many faculty, how many staff, what degrees we offer, graduation rates, retention rates, those sorts of things. And we report that to a variety of audiences. We have to report to the federal government, we have to report to the state, we report to internal leadership, board of trustees, and we also put all this information out on our public fact book. So anybody can go and look and see this information. So a lot of it is who we are in summary statistics. The research, the other part of the title, is taking the information that we have and trying to predict what might happen in the future. For example, we do a lot of studies on student retention and graduation and trying to understand that when we're looking at incoming students, trying to predict who will enroll. We also, our office surveys periodically, usually a couple times a year, students, faculty, staff, then we gather information. Then we report that out to the wider community. How it's important, everybody wants to make data-driven decisions. And so I think it's fundamental first to understand where we are, a lot of the summary information, and then to the extent possible, use that information to predict or project what might happen in the future. So I think it's beneficial in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. You guys definitely in institutional research hold a lot of data. Maybe stereotypically so. There are certain folks that get really excited about data, Excel sheets and those types of things.
Yes.
So my next question is, how did you really come to find yourself in institutional research and what landed you here at Wake Forest?
We have access to a lot of data in our responsibilities for reporting and the work we do, but actually very little of it is IRs. We have great relationships across the university with the registrar, financial aid, finance, HR, all that information we need to pull together. So how did I get into IR? Well, a lot of people sort of back into this, predecessors. Oftentimes my experience I've learned in talking to colleagues is they were a faculty member or an administrator who is okay with spreadsheets. And somebody in the executive leadership found out about this and asked them to pull together some data. And then they sort of backed into IR. That wasn't the case for me. I did my undergraduate here, and I loved my time at Wake, and I liked doing problem solving and solving mysteries. And when I graduated from Wake, my first job was in marketing research. So I've always liked doing research. And one day I can remember walking through a library, and I saw this Chronicle of Higher Education. And I forget what the headline was, but I was flipping through that because I loved my time at Wake. I've always enjoyed being at colleges. And I was going through and I saw these want ads for this thing called institutional research. And I read about it, and I can actually work on a college campus and do research about college experiences and students and learning and faculty. And I was hooked. So that's what I want to do. So unlike a lot of people, I sort of deliberately went into this career path.
Knowing you somewhat, I can believe that. You're absolutely incredible at managing that amount of data as well.
I mean, a great team.
Yeah, the whole team. We've had to cross paths in different instances during my time at Wake, and it's been really crucial to have someone who is able to help you digest and understand the data, or even finding out what data you might need. So when I think about institutional research and what you all offer the campus, there's a lot of activity that happens in the background that we might not really know in our day-to-day work, but there's also some opportunity to think about how institutional research can be a partner in work that's happening. So my next question is around, what does the campus community need to know about institutional research or keep in mind as they're doing work? And then how can we utilize the resource of the department?
Yeah, great question. We do the work we do because, well, to be honest, we do like playing with data. We are mostly quantitative in our work, and we enjoy playing around with data, and we understand that not everybody does. But hopefully the information is helpful to others. And the way we try to, oftentimes we interact with colleagues inside the university and outside. For example, when folks are doing grant proposals, they may want to know some background information that they need to put into their grant. So how many students we have. And so our fact book is available for that. As we're thinking about enrollment or as we're thinking about growth of the institution, trying to understand who is here and what changes may come as we grow. So we have information for that. I mentioned we do quite a bit of survey work. And those are more about the experiences of the student, faculty, and staff. And a lot of people are interested, understandably, in that and how different programs may be developed to address interests of the students, faculty, or staff. We also lead a large survey request process. So a lot of people across the institution want to survey our various community members. And when they do that, we ask them to go through this process, and we collect and have available on our website a lot of these results of surveys. So you might want to survey students about engagement, and that's great, but we survey a lot, so we have this information already available. So if you are thinking about doing a survey of student engagement, before you go into the field, you can come to the website and find out what has already been asked, what has already been learned. And maybe you get your answers and you don't have to do the research, or maybe those answers inform your project. So we have a lot of partnerships with the finance people, with financial aid. And so I think we interact, again, it's their data, but we are able to pull in because we have other data that can help answer questions more richly. A lot of data people think are sort of in silos, and I think it's helpful. But in order to answer a question more completely, because, for example, a student isn't just their classroom, it's their campus life experience, it's their residence life experience, it's financial aid. We have that access to data, and we can pull that together and help answer their questions more richly.
That's really great. I think that's a wonderful reminder for the campus community. I love what you said about maybe checking in first and seeing if that data is available. Because a lot of times we're working on things in our own areas, but other folks have the same questions. So that work may be already in process or already done. And I know, like you mentioned, the fact book is another really great resource that's online. I know back in the day we printed it and it was a whole documentation happening, but you kind of came in and was part of that digitizing process. So that's available as well. I want to switch gears a little bit. One of the other things that institutional research leads in is the SACS accreditation. So SACS accreditation or reaccreditation happens every 10 years. And we're actually in the midst of the reaccreditation right now. So could you give us kind of a high-level overview, I guess, of what this reaccreditation process is and what we need to know as a campus?
Sure. So every 10 years, as you said, WAKE is our reaffirmation, our institutional reaffirmation of accreditation. And this is covering the whole university. This is all the schools, all the programs. I often say it covers from admissions to ZSR because everything's part of it. There are many programmatic accreditations for business law that are focused on that particular discipline, but the SACS is across the whole institution. And it's member-driven. We don't have professional accreditors coming in and evaluating. Anybody who is part of this evaluation process is a volunteer from a member institution within SACS. So it is the members who do the evaluation. It's peer reviewed. The members who are choosing the standards and suggesting, these are the things that institutions we agree are priorities for an institution to be successful, to be meeting their mission. These are the things we think all the institutions should be doing to providing to their students, to their faculty, to their staff. So it is a great way to demonstrate to the public that we have gone through a peer review process and we are meeting what we agree on are important standards. That's part of it. The federal government also has requirements for accreditation. If an institution wants to have their students have access to federal financial aid, that institution has to be accredited by one of these institutional accreditors. So that is another part of this. We want our students to be able to have the financial aid access. So we go through this process as well. So there's two sort of primary drivers, the peer review and the federal government requirements. Again, everybody is involved in this, and we've been working on it for 2 years now. It'll be culminating in the next month, March 23rd through 26th, when we will have 8 volunteer representatives from member institutions coming, and then we'll be spending a few days meeting with folks, talking with students, faculty, and staff, and reviewing our progress in meeting these standards.
It's such a huge endeavor, and that's putting it lightly, I'm sure. You guys are involved, like you said, from the very beginning, and it's a multi-year process just to get this report done and get the evaluation. There are lots of folks across campus that are also involved, whether they're submitting data, submitting reports, or involved in the visit that you mentioned. And then there are others that might not be directly involved. But when you think about how we as a campus community and colleagues can be helpful during this process, what kind of things come to mind? How can we help institutional research in this endeavor?
Sure. There are a lot of people involved. So the first part of this process was writing a written report that you have familiar with because you participated in that. And we had a few dozen people authoring that report across the institution. And then we got feedback on that report, and the next is the on-site visit. So during this on-site visit, right now I have over 250 names of students, faculty, and staff from across the institution, not just on the main campus, but on down on the Charlotte campus, Brookstown, Innovation Quarter, all the schools, our brick and mortar or online. Over 250 people involved in when this committee comes will be meeting with the committee members. And so how we can get involved or how we can support, well, those 250 are, putting forward a day or two to be part of this. So that is a huge help. And I know all those people probably have people back in their office or in the departments who are helping them. So I think there's a lot of flexibility that's required for this because the committee may decide, I wanted to have a follow-up conversation with so-and-so that wasn't on the original schedule. And we want to, of course, be accommodating to that. We want to say, sure, no problem, we'll get that person there. So the people who will be in the meetings, of course, we want to be accommodating. But I realize that when they are stepping away from their day roles, that may mean the people back in their offices or departments, may have to pick up the slack for that time of that visit. And also there may be a text or an email coming out of meeting. We need to get this document. They've asked for this document. Help us find this document. So I think everybody chipping in, being flexible and being collegial and welcoming, but it's going to take a lot of folks. And
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's pretty amazing to think about 250 names that you're managing this data, you're managing this reaccreditation process, you and your team, and you're trying to bring people in the process as well. So thank you all for doing that. I mean, I think most of us who are familiar with SACS hear SACS reaccreditation, we've kind of grown.
I get that a lot.
But I will attest that you all make that process, I'm sure it's a heavy load for you. We make it as smooth as possible for others who are submitting that information and providing those reminders and, and tips on how to show up our best. So thank you guys for that.
We try, and we have a great group that's been working together on this, and people have been very supportive, and it can be a bit of a slog. Yeah. But I think people really want to demonstrate the great things we're doing here. And so it makes it, I think, easier. This is our time to brag. We got a lot to be proud of. And so we should certainly take this opportunity to brag.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard you talk about the process as, the carrot and the stick.
Right.
And yes, we have to do this, but also the benefit, as you have told me, is really being able to learn from the data that's gathered. If you reflect on just your previous experiences with the process, were there surprises that you learned along the way or things you've seen the institution be able to better implement because of the SACS accreditation?
I think there are. I think 10 years ago, when we had the visit, we had no recommendations from the committee. Everything went well, but they give some friendly advice. And I think, we have done that. We've listened to that, and we've made some improvements in things that we were already doing well. And that is one of the real. It isn't a gotcha. They're not here trying to call us out or catch us in anything. I've served on these committees, and really, you're going there just as much to learn about what they're doing and share. And And you come back from these visits and oh, did you know they were doing this at this place? Or you have a new contact. So there's a lot of networking and sharing of good ideas. So yeah, it's a pretty good experience, but I do realize that I'm grown.
We'll try to keep that to a minimum. So I want to step beyond institutional research and the SACS accreditation and think about who you are as a colleague on this campus, how you show up. And one of the things I learned about you recently is that you have a very special practice of parking in Reynolda Village and walking to campus. So what started that process and what do you get from that journey?
I do. Well, I was lucky enough to go here for my undergraduate years, so I know how beautiful this place is. I guess I've been doing it most of the time since I've been back. I think it's a beautiful campus. The walking through the path through the woods to the village, it's a great way to start and end my day, particularly at the end of the day. I use this time to sort of decompress, to do some devotional, some reflection. And if I think, oh, I need to remember to do this tomorrow, I can quick send myself an email. And that way, by the time I get to my car, I've kind of begun to let that go. I think it helps me to be balanced. So it's a nice way to end the day. And in the fall, the leaves, and the spring. When it's raining sideways and snowing, I sometimes question the decision to do this. But on the whole, those days are far fewer.
Yeah, it is absolutely a beautiful campus. And, on those days where the weather is not so good, we will not judge you, Phil, if we see you parked outside of Reynolds.
Yeah.
So I think that's also an interesting practice to think about because a lot of times working on campus, if you're not student facing, you can just kind of find yourselves in your office and you just, you're there all day, you leave and all that. And I think that process, I'm sure, gives you an opportunity to see campus in a way that's fresh and being able to see students in their environment and faculty and staff as well, being able to bump into colleagues. Mm-hmm. Has that been an experience for you?
It has, yeah. It's really nice. Actually, this morning, on my way in, I saw a colleague going for a run, actually a couple I got to say hello to. And so that's nice. And in the afternoon, I don't see many students in the morning at 7:30 on the paths. I see more of them on the way out in the afternoon. Yeah. And sometimes I do get to see students that I know and say hello. And yeah, it's nice because I don't see students very often.
But you do see students at certain points in time. Actually, it's a good segue for us. So Phil is actually one of the few staff members that I know of that actually advises students. So how did that come about? Or more importantly, when you think about that process, what makes you want to be involved in students' lives and advising? And then what have you learned from students?
Well, I've been a lower division advisor, which means I advise undergraduates until they declare a major, which is typically in the spring of their sophomore year. And I've been doing that pretty much as long as I've been here. Maybe my first year, I didn't do it. I had a wonderful experience here, and anything I can do to be part of that and give back, I'm happy to do that. And being with the students is wonderful. As you said, I don't interact with students very often. In fact, it's pretty easy in my work to kind of almost fall into a trap of students are 1 or 0. There's someone you count in this group or that group. And, because I'm working with quantitative data so much. So the personal interactions with the students helps keep that at bay. It also gives me, I learn quite a bit from them because I hear about their experiences. We do, as I said, we research and we try to understand and try to predict. So I'm not going to say mini focus groups, but when I am meeting with them, I'm listening to things that are challenges for them, listening for things that excite them. And then when we're doing survey research, I ask them to please remind your friends to do a survey. What incentives might work for you? But it's wonderful. And when I got here, my wife and I have 3 boys, and they were getting into the college age, and I just thought, well, I would like to give advice as I hope they are when they're meeting with their advisor.
That's really wonderful. I think that interaction, however frequent it happens, does do something for you as a employee on campus and reminds us and grounds us at times with why we're here and what's really happening beyond just our offices. And I will say, I was sharing with a colleague that I was going to be speaking with you, and they said they were a big fan. And they also said that one of the reasons was because their daughter had you as an advisor.
Yes.
And so obviously you've given some good insight along the way. That's really wonderful that you're able to do that and continue that process.
Yeah, actually, there's been a couple of folks I've advised their children, which
Mhm.
is fun.
I'm sure it was easier to hear from you than the parent at times. So I think the other side of that, when we talked about what you may have learned from students, but when you think about your colleagues that you work with, whether it's day to day in your office or just across campus, what have you learned from your colleagues?
Oh, a lot. I genuinely am impressed day after day with the passion people have for being here and serving the mission of the students. Some may be cynical, but I've been to faculty meetings. I've been to a lot of administrative meetings, and it generally comes back to the students and serving the students and the mission of the institution, and that's very inspiring. Sometimes it can be frustrating dealing with federal reporting or SACS even, and I think that's true of everybody. They can get mired down in the details of their work, but then when we step back and why we're here and the mission of the institution, and getting that reminder daily from folks with I'm meeting, if they're in finance or if they're housing or faculty members, to hear it consistently across the campus it helps me, when I am frustrated or grumbling at some standards that I have to address. So I think that's a big one. But then also, we are in the quantitative technology business, and I have a great staff of folks who are learning skills and sharing with me. I frequently meet with them, and they'll correct me. That's not the right way to do this. So here's a better technology to do it. So the folks in my office are constantly learning new skills, and I don't get to play as much with data as I used to. But when I do, I know to go to them to help me succeed.
It's really great to hear you speak so highly of your team, and I know they feel the same way about you as well. Part of this experience for Insider Perspective is we like to get the voice of folks that work with you as well. So we actually spoke to Sarah Gravitt in your office, who's been here for a very long time and has known you from your start. And we asked Sarah to kind of reflect about who you are as a colleague and the value you add to your team. I'm going to read you a portion of what she shared with me.
Okay.
So she says, as a colleague, I am so grateful for Phil's kind, calm, and thoughtful leadership style and attention to detail. Yet I also enjoy the friendly banter of his sense of humor. I am most appreciative of his willingness to listen. He is an incredible listener.
Yes, very kind.
So when I read that and I kind of honed in on that portion about listening, and I thought that paired really well with what you do for the campus as far as data. In some ways, you're listening to the data and you're trying to determine how best to apply this. And that happens within the leadership of the university. A lot of that data and your interpretation of that helps influence decisions that are being made. And then as we spoke about earlier, being able to help other folks across campus departments and divisions also grapple with data. So Phil, I want to say thank you for your service to the university and for who you are and how you show up on campus.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add as we wrap up?
I'm just very fortunate and thankful and grateful to be here. And as I've said, we have wonderful staff, wonderful people across the institution. It's a joy to be able to give back to my alma mater.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Phil, for joining me today on Insider Perspective. And we look forward to finishing the SACS accreditation.
Yes, we do.
And, staying abreast of what's happening with institutional research. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I've enjoyed it.